Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I think everyone on the committee can agree that we need to put an end to the short-term reauthorization extensions, I should say, of the NFIP, and finally pass a long-term reauthorization of the program. And in my mind, any NFIP authorization bill needs to keep premiums affordable, invest in robust mitigation, and fix the claims process that left so many New Jerseyans, for example, out of their homes for years after Hurricane Sandy. And I also think we need to deal with the NFIP debt so that we can put the program on sound financial footing and reinvest those savings into building resiliently so that communities are prepared for the climate challenges of the 21st century. Last Congress, I introduced a bipartisan NFIP REACT that answers these challenges. I certainly appreciate Senators Cassidy, Schumer, Kennedy, and other co-sponsors on the committee who came together to advance bold and necessary reforms. And I'm hopeful that we can come together. I know Senator Rounds has expressed interest on working on this. I look forward to working with him and others to get a long-term reauthorization done. But unfortunately, what I've heard from some of the witnesses today concerns me and runs counterintuitive to the whole purpose of the NFIP. The great solution, as some say, to the problems is to raise premiums. That makes the most vulnerable to flooding pay extremely high premiums for their coverage. The reality is, the more you put onto the back of the policyholder, the more people leave the program altogether. Ultimately, this idea is worse off for taxpayers, forcing Congress to spend more on expensive disaster relief that goes to unprotected homes. So I think we know that there are two sides to a budget. You either increase revenues or you cut costs. So why would we penalize policyholders when there are runaway expenses of the NFIP? I mean, 30 cents every premium dollar written goes straight to the pockets of insurance companies. The federal government pays itself $400 million every year in interest payments. FEMA even covers insurance companies' high-priced lawyers that rack up endless legal bills to challenge, I think very often, from my experience in Sandy, unfairly policyholders. So, Ms. Sternhurl, wouldn't you agree that we should get the costs of the program under control, like cutting WIL compensation instead of jacking up premiums that push people out of the program?
That's a good question, Senator. And as I laid out in some of my testimony, yes, write your own compensation is something we are concerned about given the financial situation of the NFIP. Obviously, we want people to be paid fairly for work done. And so one of the things we have put forward is, perhaps the year one that you issue a policy, a WIO can receive 30% of the premium cost. But when you're basically forwarding a DocuSign for a renewal, that's not the same degree of work. And at that point, there's an opportunity for the NFIP to recoup more of that premium back to them.
Well, I think one of the long-term reauthorization goals has to be keeping premiums affordable. Now, FEMA has been working for the last few years on a new rating system called Risk Rating 2.0. However, to date, there is still very little known about the new rating system, how much premiums will increase, where the impacts will be concentrated, how about they went about their rating. And it's not just a New Jersey problem. This rating system will impact colleagues on the Gulf Coast and southeastern coastal states, among others. Under the existing rate cap, homeowners can see their premiums double in just 4 short years. This is why I've called for a 9% rate cap to protect policyholders from a sudden increase. Let me ask you again, Ms. Sternhell, can you talk about why it's important for flood insurance premiums to remain affordable?
At the end of the day, we want people covered. We want them to be able to rebound after an event. And so ensuring affordability means people will take up coverage. And it means that homeowners who maybe aren't required to have insurance coverage will adopt policies, will subscribe. It broadens the pool of risk. It lowers rates for everyone. It lowers the risk to the program overall. That's some of our concern about Risk Rating 2.0, that it's been done a bit in a black box. And we don't know what the impacts will be, whether they're localized, whether they're widespread in specific communities. And so ensuring affordability, I think, is the #1 challenge facing you all right now as you reauthorize this program.
Okay, and finally, for every dollar spent on mitigation, the federal government saves $6 on the back end. Mr. Berginnis, can you talk about why mitigation is a critical part to reforming NFIP?
Absolutely. Usually the buildings that need mitigated tend to be our older buildings. They tend to also be lower cost buildings and housing folks that are more modest means and those that are most vulnerable. So mitigation becomes very important because then whether you elevate, whether you relocate, whether you buy out and do those kinds of things, you truly can make those families and those businesses much more resilient to flooding in the future and have the benefit of a lower flood insurance rate.
As well as stopping the likelihood of repetitive loss.
Exactly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate your hearing on this.